08000 321 333 is my number, and I can't do it without you. And this evening, amongst the other things we're talking about from round your way, remember this is a program for your community. From round your way, what we're talking about is, well, swimming. Have a guess. Go on, have a guess. Do you think I can swim? Go and have a guess. Do you think I can swim or not? 08000 321 333. It's a good guess to start off with because I'll explain more on that later on, but you will see why it's not an easy guess. It's not as easy as you think it is to guess on this one. But have a guess anyway. 08000 321 333. And you'll laugh your head off when you find out the answer. You will. At least I will laugh my head off when you give me a suggestion as to what you think. Can you swim? Even more importantly, how did you learn to swim and when did you learn to swim? Share that information with me. And do you still swim? Is it important to you to swim for whatever reasons? I'm talking about that during the course of the programme this evening. 08000 321 333. Let's talk about swimming. Can you swim? If you can't, how come you can't? 08000 321 333. Can you swim? If you can, how come you can? And when did you learn how to swim? Look, my question to you this evening has been, can I swim or not? Have a guess. In fact, it's a question that I'm going to pose to my two guests who are in the studio now. They should know. Ed, do you want to go first? Can Dotun swim or not? What do you reckon?
I don't think Dotun can swim.
You don't?
No, I tell a lie. No, because we've had this conversation before. Yes, you can swim. Yes, you can. Yes,
are you sure about that?
Yes, you can swim.
Are you sure about that?
But you see,
are you sure? Do you remember rightly?
You can swim.
Okay.
I think you can swim.
Okay. But you've never seen any evidence.
No evidence whatsoever. But I believe. I believe you can swim.
Imzy, Ed believes I can swim. What do you believe? Can Dotun swim or not?
If Ed believes that Dotun can swim, then I mean, you look like a strong man yourself. You look like, you've got amazing hands.
What you're trying to say, I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
He's trying to basically say that I'm slightly overweight. And you know, when we were kids, for whatever reason, the slightly overweight kids could float like a butterfly. For goodness sake.
Float like a butterfly.
Exactly. Not sure about the stinging part. No, but the reason that it's a good question is because I'm looking at these stats, which would suggest very highly likely, or the likelihood is that I can't swim. And these stats are somewhat shocking, I won't lie. Listen to these stats. 97% of black adults and 96% of Asian adults cannot swim. And this is in England, right across the country, are not swimmers. They don't swim and they don't participate in water-related activities. Ed Akura is with us, and he guessed somewhat inaccurately, but we'll come to that in a second. He guessed somewhat inaccurately, but you're the co-founder of the Black Swimming Association, Ed. Clearly, you lot aren't doing your job if 97% of black adults can't swim.
That's why we have this new documentary, and going to have to change the narrative. It's a big issue that we've had, and I only learned how to swim 2 or 3 years ago, and I still wouldn't say I'm a swimmer. But yeah, it's a big issue.
But how can you have gone through school in this country and only learned to swim 2 or 3 years ago?
I grew up in Ghana. I went to Ghana when I was 9 years old, and I can remember my first engagement with swimming was, I was lucky enough to be in a private school, and most of my friends, my classmates were Caucasian, Asian, from all over the world. Then one of my friends had a party, and he had a swimming party in his house. He had a swimming pool. And I asked my mum that I want to learn how to swim so I can go to this party. And my mum said, you don't need to learn about swimming. It's your books, your education. That's what you need to concentrate on, not swimming. You can swim at any time. We don't have a pool. We don't live by the sea. You don't need to do it. And that was my last conversation about swimming until I came back to the UK and found out that most of my friends or most people that look like me don't swim anyway. So I didn't need to do it. My mum was right.
Imzy,
Yes.
can you swim?
Yes, I can swim.
You can. When did you learn to swim?
So I learned to swim when it was compulsory for me to attend swimming sessions during my young years in primary school in Camden.
You didn't have a choice about it, did you?
Yes, I didn't have a choice but to go to these lessons. I had to, it was from like, I think year 2, so I was about 7 years old when I had to start going to these swimming lessons. And I even had to cut my hair like quite a lot because my hair grows quick, so it kept going in my eyes, and you weren't allowed to swim if your hair went to your eyes. So yeah, I went to as many swimming sessions as I could because I did not know how to swim at all before that compulsory schooling.
You went to swimming sessions outside the school sessions as well?
No, I never went to any outside schooling sessions in my entire life up until that one part of the documentary series where I swam with Devonye. Never anything trained outside of the compulsory sessions in Camden when I was in primary school.
So would you say that, because there is a serious side of this, an absolutely serious side, would you say that you were a confident swimmer, a strong swimmer perhaps even?
As in when I was younger or now?
No, what, as when you were younger and you were learning it, yeah.
I was not a confident swimmer. I did not know how to swim at all. Apart from one time I went to Kenya when I was 5 years old with some of my family. I don't remember ever being in a pool at all up until I had to do it for primary school.
I'm calling you Imzy. I should say Imran Cummings.
Yes, Imran Cummings, yes.
Imran Cummings.
But you call me Imzy though.
Yeah, but I prefer, but for everybody else, you should know, because you're the star of this documentary, aren't you?
Yeah.
So at the very least, we need to know your stage name, if you like.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's important, Ed, is because swimming is the one sport that is also a life saver.
Yep.
So, I know at least one person who had a child that drowned. Well, I know 2 people, actually.
Oh, man.
I know 2 people. And one of them works at this very radio studio where I'm sitting now.
I'm so sorry.
Well, yeah, this is a while ago, and thank you on behalf of them. But kids do drown from not being able to swim, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Every year.
And if I may say so, this is the reason why I decided to make this documentary. After making 3 documentaries called Blacks Can't Swim, I had to make another one, but focus on the youth. And the problem is that when with the documentaries, the previous documentaries, we've had this conversation and we continue to have this conversation. I made it easier for us to have the conversation. And hence the reason why I called it Blacks Can't Swim. But there was a big issue. Then the big issue. I woke up in the beginning of the year and I said to myself, has it worked? Everything that we have been doing over the last 5-6 years, co-founding the Black Swimming Association, creating these film documentaries, has it worked? And then I hear the statistic that 97%, it used to be 95% in 2020, but now it's 97% of black adults do not swim. So something's not quite right. But something I've said from the very beginning is that if we are going to change this narrative, it's not going to be people like you, Dotun, or people like myself. It's going to be the younger generation. If they change, because they're going to be the future parents, future policymakers, future leaders. And if they can change, if they engage with swimming and they find it exciting, then their children will start swimming, and their children's children. So basically, that's how we're going to change the narrative. And hence the reason why I decided to make this documentary.
Do you see what he did there, Imzy? He's put it on you now and your generation. Yes. So the increase in the number of black adults who can't swim has got to be down to your generation, hasn't it? Or that 2% increase, because there aren't more of us coming, but there's more of you coming up, as it were.
Yeah, it's true, because we're still developing, and Ed has mentioned to us before, the young generation are the future leaders. That's people my age.
So why aren't you swimming? Why aren't you or your peer group? Why are they not swimming?
And this is where you say, Imzy, that you need to watch the documentary.
Yes, you need to watch the documentary.
No,
it's all in there. No, it's all in there.
You cannot come on this radio program and say you need to watch the documentary.
Yeah.
No doubt people do need to watch the documentary, and we'll say more about that later on. But is it not, or do you agree then, if you, let me put it that way, that your generation that were brought up in this country, that went through the same schooling as you did, went through the same junior school process as you aren't swimming? I mean, I could imagine that a lot of schools don't take kids swimming anymore because they don't have the resources, the money, the staff and whatnot. A lot of swimming pools are closing down. We know that because they cost councils a lot of money. They've been closing down. I'm just trying to figure out the reasons, because Ed has now said to me, you've got to watch the documentary. And I'm like, okay, how can I figure out the reason without watching the documentary? I'll give you a couple of examples there.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll touch on this lightly. It is, I did talk about this more in depth in a documentary series, but just to give you a brief perspective, I'm going to give you a dynamic, and this is between two areas as a young child in which I went through two different schools in. That's Camden. I grew up in Gospel
London Borough of Camden, yes.
Yeah, I went to Gospel Oak Primary School initially, and then there's Tottenham. I went to Harris Academy in Tottenham.
Yeah, now you're talking my neighbourhood. This is Tottenham as in the football ground. But anyway, you've essentially gone from, NW1 to N17s,
yeah? Literally NW3 to N17.
N17, there you go.
And in answering that, so initially, like in Camden, I was surrounded by a lot of people that did swim, and also, to be specific, there was incredible amount of Caucasian people, proportionately wise, to black people / even mixed black people in primary school, and pretty much everyone in my year / class swam. There was a Lido called the Parliament Hill Lido. Have you heard of it?
Of course I do. Open air Lido.
So I lived about 2 minutes from there. Literally right next to Hampstead Heath. And all my friends and classmates, they would come to class like talking about how they went to Lido with their families and parents, and even meeting up outside of school to go to the Lido. And this was like some of the main things that I grew up hearing whilst I was in Camden. At the age of 5, I moved to Tottenham. I moved to like Northumberland Park Lane, and when I started secondary school, I went to Harris Academy Tottenham. And to put that into perspective, it was almost the polar opposite of that. So demographic wise, it was a high majority of black people, and then Asian people, and then Caucasian too. By high proportion of black people to Caucasian, and it was the almost opposite of what I just said.
Is it, Ed, a question of, and sorry to keep cutting you on you there, Imzy, because it struck me that listeners who are listening in Cumbria, for example, may not understand the subtle difference between the one neighbourhood in London and the other neighbourhood. Is it a question of racial identity, racial biology, or is it arguably an economic question? Because what Imzy didn't say there is that there is a large economic discrepancy from going from NW3s,
socio-economic wise,
to the N17s. So when we look at these stats, that 97% of black adults, I still can't believe it, and 96% of Asian adults, still can't believe it, are non-swimmers. Is it for financial reasons, or is there culturally something going on?
There is just a bit of both. There's definitely financial reasons. I grew up in Tottenham. My mum still lives in Tottenham. I go to Tottenham every 2 weeks to see mum and eat some jollof rice and all that.
Not as good as the Nigerian one, but Ghana can try its best. I'm not getting into that argument.
I think let me just say,
I went to Ghana, I looked left, I looked right, I looked everywhere. I went to all the restaurants and I still couldn't find one jollof as good as the Nigerian. Thank you, Nish.
Yeah,
we'll come back to you.
We'll come back to that one,
okay.
So you've totally thrown me off course now.
No, I'm just stating a fact for our listeners. We've got a listener up in Cumbria who doesn't know what jollof rice is. It's just something that I have to explain to them. It's rice that's made better by Nigerians than by Ghanaians. End of story. Sorry, do go on.
I've never heard it said that way before, but anyway, we will come back to that one. So yes, but basically I live in Buckinghamshire now, or South Bucks, more just west of London, and it's a more affluent area. Well, Tottenham now, it's totally with the gentrification and everything now, but let's just say in general, it's a more affluent area. And I'm pretty sure that majority of the black people in the area where I live now can swim. Rather than, as opposed to when I was living in Tottenham, people around me, swimming, it just wasn't one, just something that we didn't do. So I think, going back to your original question, finances, but it's just only one part of it. It's just one. There's so many reasons why black people don't swim, and I think my documentaries over the past years have addressed majority of them. From the hair. The hair is the one thing that keeps on coming up.
We'll come back to that in a moment, and that might be more a ladies thing, but we'll come back to that in a moment.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just to touch on my point before, I was going to say, so that Lido and also pools around the area in Camden, like Kentish Town, like an Archway, these are all substantial big amounts of pools in that area, in that Camden borough. In Haringey, when I came to Tottenham, there wasn't a large amount of places to go to swimming. I only remember Tottenham Leisure Centre, which was about 30 minutes away, and then one called Park Road, past like Alexandra Palace, around Hornsey, and that was over an hour away. So even with like a lack of publicly accessible swimming pools in the area, it's an effort. It's more money to travel to these places, and it wasn't as accessible in our borough like football cages and basketball courts were.
Well, it's a good point that Imzy makes, because I grew up in exactly that same area and there were more swimming pools. In fact, there used to be a Lido. I think it's now a school, Somerset School there on Lordship Lane. There used to be a Lido right there.
Yeah,
that has
I heard that they closed that down.
That was years ago. That was generations ago or so. Yeah. But I still remember it. I'm saying that there's less opportunities now in those areas. Do you know what my younger brother says? One of my younger brothers.
Yeah.
He's an intelligent young man, I must say. Went to a much better school than I did. Went to a better university than I did. I'm giving you the landscape only because this is what he said.
Yeah.
And he can't swim till this day. My other younger brother couldn't swim, and then he got thrown in the deep end at his school.
No
and he said that his shorts were hanging down to his ankles when the teacher decided to shove a pole in for him to grab onto one of those metal poles.
That's so
and he says, well, it is embarrassing, but he should have learned to swim like the rest of us. And by the way, yes, I can swim. But tell me this, Ed, you got it right. Yes. Tell me this, Ed.
Me as well.
Yeah, you as well, only because you followed Ed's line. But tell me this, on a serious note, this is what my other younger brother says, that black people have got heavier bones and that's been proven, and therefore it's more difficult for us to swim than any other racial groups. Is there any truth in that or not?
Has there been a study for that?
I will tell you that early next year, the Black Swimming Association, which I co-founded with Alice Deering, Seren Jones and Daniel Obey, are working on a study together with RNLI and Portsmouth University to understand, it's a physiology research, to understand if there's any truth in this. We're currently conducting this research, so we will find out by the end of the year, early next year, whether there's any truth at all in this.
Okay, where can we see the documentary for now?
The documentary can be found on YouTube, and all you have to do is type in "Changing the Narrative," and it's there. We're on episode 3 at the moment.
So we can't just type in "black people can't swim"?
No, because that's a different documentary.
Okay.
The one we're talking about right now is changing the narrative.
Yeah.
And it's a fly on the wall documentary, so everything, there's no script or anything. We're just following a group of young people to understand why there's such a disconnect between swimming and everyday lives.
Imzy, you've got a lot of hair. Ed mentioned the hair.
Yeah,
Does that put you off?
I was gonna counter your point when you said it just affects girls. I believe earlier, or like
women.
Yeah, women.
Yeah,
I
did say that. Yeah, teasingly.
And while I mean, you may have more people with long hair that are ladies, like if you look at it in the last like however many years, if you've seen like recent trends, you'll see that a lot of young people, especially like boys, have been growing out their hair, like including myself, like over like the last like 7-8 years.
Yes,
especially.
I had this done on Friday. I'm no lying. If people knew the amount of money we spend on getting our hair done, and this is the fellas, you know,
yeah,
me and you.
It's a lot, you know.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So why would you go swimming and spoil it all? But to save your life, it might be worth it. Listen, it's worth checking out this docu-series. It's called Changing the Narrative, available on YouTube, as Ed has said. I have to thank you both for coming in. Nigeria makes the best jollof rice, it says here. I don't know who wrote that down, Ed. Any idea?
Dotun, maybe?
Ed Akira and Imzy Cummings, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the film. I generally do. So the question is, can you swim? Where did you learn to swim? And why can't you swim if you can't?